Hi, my name's Kylie, and this is my final presentation on three different artists who really gave a voice to the marginalized people of their times. So first, I'm going to be talking about Pablo Neruda, and he was the famous Chilean poet. He was named Poet of the People because he fought for the oppression and unfair treatments of the people of Chile. He also gave the people of Chile a voice through his many poems and other works. In the beginning, Neruda wrote a lot of poetry about love. Actually, one of his most renowned works was written in 1924 called Veinte Poemas de Amor. But after this time, he spent some time in the Spanish Civil War fighting, and after that, he really began to write more serious poetry. He wrote for the marginalized, the oppressors, and the oppressed. He began also to write poetry for the people and of the people, and he began to champion for the common man. In about 1945, Neruda became a senator for the Chilean parliament, and he had to fight for the democratic rights of all people, not just the oppressed. This kind of bothered him because he really did want to be just a fighter and a worker just for the oppressed and for the working class, but this really made him broaden his horizons, and he had to work as well with the upper class and the wealthy. But he writes this poem called El Pueblo to show his democratic inclusiveness, and this poem demonstrates both his presence and absence, and it reads, "So let no one worry when I seem to be alone and am not alone. I am not with nobody, and I speak for all. Someone is listening to me, and although they do not know it, those I sing of, those who know, go on being born and will fill up the world." So, although Neruda had to be inclusive to all, even the upper class, I think he always connected to the common man and woman, and he appealed to their emotional and personal connection because he spoke a lot about ordinary objects that they could really connect to. He was very committed to his politics, but his utopia truly was to conquer and overcome grief, and not just grief of the individual, but grief of the collective. So, after being in Parliament, he became very lonely, and around the year 1947, he writes this poem called The Way Spain Was. And in this poem, he speaks highly of the old Spain, which was before the Franco regime and before Franco was the long ruling dictator of Spain. In this poem, he writes about the rough times in Spain, and he uses words such as you can see here on this slide, I love your hard soil, your poor bread, your poor people. And he talks about these using a rough tone, but actually, overall in the poem, he really gives it a glorious feeling, and this is to give the people of Spain a sense of pride. And in many of his poems, like this one, he expresses sorrow in a really hopeful manner. So, his next poem, Neruda just always shows concern for the masses, and he wrote about a range of issues that all types of people could relate with at any point in their life. He used his poetry to change his society, both socially and politically. Generally, though, his poems focus on and give importance to the social status of different sectors of society. So in this poem, I'm explaining a few things. He says, I have it highlighted here in purple. He says, you will ask why his poetry does not speak to us of dreams and leaves. Come see the blood in the streets. And to me, I think this poem clearly expresses his anger and his rage at the world's injustices at this time. He clearly does not think that what is going on is fair, and he wants to bring about change for all people. He goes on to say, I think that what is going on is, I think he says, I search for the world for those who lost their country. And here, I think he's explaining that he does not feel like this is the country he once knew before, because people were turning to violence and war, and that's really just not what he wanted in his country. In a different poem, I'm unsure of what the name of this poem is, but he writes, I have a pact of love with beauty, I have a pact of blood with my people. So here he's explaining that he will fight to give a voice for the people of Chile because they deserve to be heard and valued. And overall, in Neruda's poetry, he uses the voices and experiences of people of Chile to get their messages across. Almost all, if not all, of his poetry really speaks out against the oppression and encourages social reform. He was a surrealist, he was an anti-war activist, and in his songs and poems of Canto General, he tells the story of the Latin American people, and many sections of this poem are dedicated to the workers and peasants whose homes and experiences he had shared many times. And these people lended their voices to Neruda so that he could show how oppressed they were by the conquerors and dictators of that time. So I really think the world read Neruda's Neruda's poetry for its personal insight, its beauty, and for its love of life. And I think today Neruda's work is known for the power his poetry gave to the voice of the people of Chile. So next I'm going to be talking about the flamenco and how it became not only an artistic expression, but a movement for the Gitanos, or the Gypsies, who were one of the most marginalized groups of Spain at the time. So actually, Paco de Lucia is here on the left. He was a famous flamenco guitarist, and he worked with Manuel de Falla, who's in the middle, and Federico Garcia Lorca, who's on the right, to create Cante Hundo, which is otherwise known as the deep song. So this deep song was important to the Gitanos because it was a song that made people come together and really share in their suffering. As I was doing some research, I saw a choreographer and a performer named Catarina Bermudez, and she says that the flamenco itself is a universal cry. So whether you are Jewish or African, it doesn't matter because it's the same, because pain has no color or creed. So really, I think the flamenco was a way for people to voice what is beyond the spoken word, and it is used to really break into a deeper, inner well of sorrow, pain, and joy. So the cante is part of the flamenco, and this expresses the gypsies' misery and suffering. A huge cante singer is Camarón de la Isla, and flamenco is really an art form that rose out of pain and oppression, and Camarón de la Isla was a famous flamenco singer, but he was also a gypsy for who many years lived in Spain under the Franco regime. So he experienced this oppression and this pain and suffering, and you could tell when he sings that he has that in his voice. His voice is broken, it's kind of raspy and deep, and to me, I think this is a result of the pain of his race. His voice portrays the gypsy life in Spain, especially he has 4 songs that really kind of show these scenarios and details about the gypsies, and they're called Mi Barrio, Dame la Mano, Toma que Toma, y Pa que me llamas prima. So these verses in these different songs describe the scenarios and details that are very typical in many gypsy songs, and also they portray gypsy neighborhoods, the flamenco, zapateado, and familial loyalty. And then these are the gitanos that are the real-life gypsies, and it's just showing the tradition is passed along through one generation to the next. So there is something particular about the flamenco, and that's its connection with the gitanos. And this was something that the cante used lyrics that spoke to the social repression of the gitanos in Spain. And because the flamenco was not taught in schools, many gitanos learned it in their house, and it was passed down from generation to generation. So many gitanos say that they were born with knowing the flamenco in their blood, and this naturalization of skill made them feel as though they were part of a group at a time in history when no one else wanted to be around them. And this feeling of belonging was really something that could not be taken away from them by any dominant forces. So these identities that were built around flamenco and communicated through the dance are to many, especially for De La Isla as well, it gives them a voice and a feeling of identity. Now finally here I'm going to talk about the artist Diego Rivera. And Diego Rivera is known as a famous Mexican artist, and he made many famous pieces, but his murals were some of the most controversial yet most successful at promoting social change. So he is known for his radical and political religious beliefs, but also many times he painted scenes that dealt with Mexican society and the Mexican Revolution of 1910. He is also known for his work during the Mexican mural renaissance in the 1920s through the 40s, and this came about in response to a social upheaval and reforms of the Mexican Revolution in the 1910 and 1920. So he's best known for this piece right here called The History of Mexico from the Conquest to the Future, and this is currently hanging in the Palacio Nacional in Mexico City, and it's a set of 3 different panels that covers over 4,800 square feet. So the purpose of this mural is to tell a story of Mexico from 1521 to 1930 and to make clear Mexico's national identity. So here on the first panel, it's the left panel, and you can see that it represents the pre-Hispanic Mexico. So in this panel, Rivera uses indigenismo, which is a mixed social realism with glorification of the indigenous people. And a lot of times, Rivera used this style of painting to connect and identify with the common people of Mexico. Here's the center panel, and this panel represents the conquest to the present. And then finally here, the right panel is the third panel, and this represents Mexico of today and the future. So the intent of this mural for Rivera was to make the nation's history available to people through pictures instead of words. It was also supposed to help promote a national and cultural identity, and it was supposed to raise the common laborer to a position of organized power in present-day Mexico, which would provide a voice for the marginalized. But the downfall to this is that it actually did not achieve what it was intended for. And in fact, the working class did not get to put in their own opinions, so they didn't feel like they were represented correctly in this painting. So, although this didn't work, Rivera made a different mural that did bring about social and cultural change. He made many other murals, but this is a mural he did in the United States where he embellished American buildings with working class and indigenous content. So these works led to transculturation between Mexico and the United States. So it placed a marginalized group in the dominant culture, but through transculturation, he was able to go further and not just let the marginalized group be heard, but also let them change the dominant culture in a significant way. So the U.S. was actually adopting a piece of the marginalized culture, which is Mexican culture, as its own. So a specific example is this piece, The Detroit Industry, which glorifies the worker and the machine-like efficiency of the automobile industry. So Rivera subtly placed in here aspects of Mexico's pre-Columbian culture, that one of the machines is actually painted to take form of the goddess, I might butcher her name, but Quetzalcoatl. And this is a piece of an Aztec sculpture. And he also painted other cultures and races in this piece. He painted female nudes in the colors black, yellow, red, and white. And these are actually static figures that are emphasizing the racial categorization and segregation, which was a huge problem at the time. And so for Rivera to be painting about this in 1933 was a huge step in the right direction for equality. And overall, I think all these three artists helped a marginalized group of people find their voice, and they helped fight for the rights of many people, even if it was against the norms of the time. And these three amazing artists did great things, but in my opinion, the best thing that they achieved was using their power, skill, and talent to help others. That's the end. Thank you.